Hello and welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. Back with me on the show today is Autumn Edwards. Welcome back to the show, Autumn.
Thanks for having me, Angela.
And Autumn and I are here to talk about catching up on 2025 movies. So, Autumn is most likely going to be the one doing my best of 2025 episode with me. And so I told her we need to get going and watch some 2025 movies that we missed in theaters. Actually, I don't say we missed all of these in theaters. Some of these we saw in theaters, we just haven't reviewed yet. But so we kind of just picked a hodgepodge of movies. A lot of these are critically acclaimed movies from 2025 that we're going to catch up on here. And we each picked two. And it doesn't mean we necessarily like them, we just picked them. The first one is Left-Handed Girl by director, oh boy, I'm going to butcher her name probably, but Shih-Ching Tsou. I figure if I just say it fast enough, no one will notice I said it wrong. It's a drama focusing on a single mother and her two daughters as they navigate life in Taipei's night market after returning from the countryside. This director is best known for working with Sean Baker as a producer on almost all of his films, with the exception of Anora, and co-directing one of their early films together was a movie that I love and own and got signed by Sean Baker. Thank you very much when I met him in person. Called Takeout, which was about a takeout delivery driver, an Asian takeout delivery driver in New York City. This film is her solo directorial debut, but it irritated me in a lot of the reviews that said her directorial debut, and I said no, she directed Takeout too. So Sean Baker edited and co-wrote this film. They actually wrote it back in like 2012, but it took them several years to find anyone to finance the movie. It was shot on an iPhone, so that kind of brings to mind Sean Baker's Tangerine, but it's very much this woman's film. It's very female focused. I really enjoyed this one, particularly the portrayal, the focus on these three women, three girls, and really different aspects of their life. The youngest girl, named Ai Jing, she's just like the most adorable little girl, of course, but she's the left-handed girl in the title, and she is left-handed, and she, in some ways, is a very much an outsider throughout the film, looking in on the struggles of her teenage sister and her mother, who is an interesting character because she is a very, at times, not very warm mother. She's very distracted. She's trying to make a go of it in this noodle stand in Taipei, doesn't pay a lot of attention to her kids. And so the young girl is often left on her own, or sometimes with her grandparents, which is where a lot of the tension comes in, because her grandfather, who's very old school, tells her that left-handed people, the left hand is the demon hand, and that people that use their left hand are evil. And so the little girl takes this to heart at some point and starts to assume her left hand is her demon hand, and her left hand does bad things, which yields some very tragic as well as very funny moments. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this film and can't wait. I hope she gets to make more.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I love, like you said, how it's focused on all the women and, even in this patriarchal society, it's really interesting to see those dynamics between the women and still feel that patriarchy like in the periphery and how it informs their decisions and how they go about their lives and everything. And there are a couple instances where it really like comes to the forefront. Like I think of the birthday scene at the end when they're celebrating the grandmother's birthday and the way they treat the son, versus all the
Oh
daughters
yeah.
and all the women there. And it's shocking the difference. And like all these little things kind of crawl out of the woodwork. Like they didn't have money for, to help the daughter or anything, but they were going to give the whole apartment to the son. And, they were happy to help him start up his business and other things. And there are all these little details that are in the story and woven like throughout, informing all these decisions, but in a way that like it doesn't really jump out at you until later. And when it does, it really like drives home, the unfairness of the situation and everything. And I love the way that they portrayed, like you said, the different kind of ages of the women. Like you kind of have women at three different, or even four if you include the grandmother, very distinct times in their
The grandma is
lives.
such a
And
character
she's
too.
so, yeah, she's so great. Like she's not necessarily the greatest person, but like
No,
I love her as a character though.
yes.
Very, very funny. It's
All the
very
characters
heartwarming.
are flawed, really. With they all
Hmm.
have pretty major flaws. The teenage girl is acting irresponsibly. The mother is often very cold to her kids, and not distracted. And then the grandma, whoo, yeah. I mean, she's a real character. So I don't want to give
Hmm.
anything away, but she does some pretty wacky stuff. And again, not the most sympathetic character all the time, but very interesting characters.
Hmm. Yeah, and I do love, the particular focus we have on the youngest. Like she's, like you said, first of all, she's adorable. Secondly, I just think the movie does a great job of portraying life, through a child of that age's eyes. Like she's so impressionable. Like when she hears from the grandpa that the left hand is the evil hand, the way she takes that so literally, and then it completely changes how she views herself and how she like interacts with the world. And I love the logic that she uses, a little bit later, kind of spoiler alert, but the logic she uses of like, my left hand is the evil hand. So, well, I guess I can steal this stuff that I want because this is just the evil hand doing it. It's like a part of me, but it's not
Mhm.
really me. But she is left-handed. And so, the way that changes how she views herself is like, I think very well portrayed and interesting. And I like the kind of message of when the older, I'm not going to spoil more, but the older girl, when she speaks to her, and she's like, "That's not true. Your hand is just your hand. You are making these decisions. You make, your life what it is." That's a very core theme for all the characters throughout the
Yeah.
film, and I just found that like, very touching that moment with them.
I'm glad you brought up the scene with the birthday party for the grandma where the son comes back because she has these, I think it's three daughters, if I'm not mistaken. You're right. Like they're the ones actually around, helping to take care of her. They even talk about they are the ones that help pay for the party, even though the one
Hmm.
daughter, the one that has the noodle stand, can barely afford to make ends meet. He seems to be doing well financially and isn't expected to help out at all or be around, but she dotes on him. So I was irritated right at the beginning. So I was actually kind of happy to see the party derail, and it goes in this very sort of cringe comedy direction that I
Uh,
thoroughly enjoyed. It reminded me of like a Shiva Baby or some other cringe movie between
it
the
got hard to
temples.
watch at some
No,
points for sure.
that's the
Yeah.
part I was like, oh no, this is really hard to watch, but also kind of hilarious, right?
Hmm.
So it's very funny in parts, which I think surprised me because it was described just as a drama. So, and then we can't forget one of my favorite characters, the other guy who has a stand near the
I
mom
loved
at the
him.
night market. He's like
Yeah.
this sweet guy who has a crush on the mom, and he's just like just dope. I mean, it just in some ways you're like what a sap, but also like well he knows what he just really likes this woman and he's willing to do anything for her, and he's selling these miscellaneous things. It's a very
Hmm.
I like films with specificity, so I love that this whole movie takes place in this one area of Taipei too. It's rarely specific to this night market where they shot it, and you just get a great sense of place of the people at the night market. If anything, the one thing I thought about the film is it could have been even longer. I would have liked to have seen more of but that's a good complaint to have, right? Like it could be
Hmm.
longer, but maybe if they had a bigger budget, it would have been. This was one I gave 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, but more I thought about it, I'm like, is it four? It's like 3.75. I wish I could give a 3.75. It's like right on the verge because I really thought about it a lot after I saw it and just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. And, there aren't many men in this, but I do think, right, the ones that they do have exhibit, again, a range of different social, place in the
Yeah.
social hierarchy and the ways they interact with the women. You have the grandpa, you have the son, and then you have the guy that the eldest daughter was working for, and the way he's just like totally like led around by a leash, by his fiance and things, and but he's also the scummy guy who's taking advantage of the women that work for him.
Yeah.
But he's really just kind of pathetic at the end. I don't know. I just think it does a great job of having all these different characters that feel real as well.
Yeah, no, really, really good find. It is playing now. It's on Netflix, and so which is really funny because it didn't even come to theaters here in Oregon, but yet Netflix has it, so people can check this out. And it did show at the Cannes debut at the Cannes Film Festival, I think, in part probably due to Sean Baker's cred now with Honora. That probably helped her get her film in, but I hope she continues to make films as well. She's very talented.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that she's finally doing her own thing. It was kind of shocking to me that like it took this long for her to have a solo debut, but glad she's
Well,
here.
it's hard for
But
Asian women. It's hard for
hmm
any women to get their movies made. And then when you add any type of non-white woman to that, like whatever it is, like
hmm
it's just like insurmountable. And so, yeah, it can be really difficult. So, yeah, I hope she gets to do more movies. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. This should be
hmm
interesting.
So the next one we're going to talk about is The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence. It is a Stephen King adaptation, and basically there's not a great deal of context needed, in my opinion. It's basically there is a long walk. One contestant is chosen from each state to participate in this competition that is put on by the U.S. government. And it's televised, and the sum of it is the last one to survive this long walk will have any wish granted. If you stop walking for, I think it's like more than 10 seconds, they shoot you in the head and everyone else moves on. So it's really just a war of attrition. Um, it's not the most, again, complex setup, and, it is just kind of a lot of Hollywood filmmaking here. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's the best shot or like the most nuanced film or whatever, but I think what really spoke to me in this film was the camaraderie between the main group. Like, I found that like each of the characters was very interesting, and I love the friendships that they built along the way. I think the choice to, not really focus as much on the subtext of the situation, like it's obviously a capitalism critique and of the government and everything, but I think the choice to focus just on the characters and their relationships with one another was a very good one, and that's what I really kind of attached to, because you have some great actors in this. um Cooper Hoffman, I think, does a wonderful job. I'm excited to see him in more movies. I hope he gets a lot more. I'm sure he will, as Hoffman's son. But I think the real star of this show, for me at least, was David Johnson. David Johnson, I think, is absolutely phenomenal in this film. His character is super charismatic. I found him incredibly compelling. Every time he would talk, I was just like riveted. And I really, really love him as an actor. And I hope he gets so much more work because I think he's a genuine star.
I enjoyed it. I not as much as you. I think you saw this in the theater, and I did not, but I did enjoy it. I think my main issues with it were really around the filming. I think the core performances, as you mentioned, of David Johnson and Cooper Hoffman are very good. Cooper Hoffman I'd only seen in Licorice Pizza before, but I think most people probably would know him, if he's seen in any of that, which I think was his film debut, which is quite a film debut. It must be, being the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman does get you some places. P.T. Anderson, uh, chooses to have you in your film. And I thought the all the young men, though, I think were quite good in their roles. My biggest issue with it is just visually, I found the film very flat, despite the fact they're walking through all these different terrains and things. Francis Lawrence, I think, is just, he directed the Hunger Games movies. I just feel like he's not the most interesting director. I
He's
just felt like,
replaceable. He's
yeah,
not
it's
doing
the
anything
film has a
super
very flat
special.
look, and I didn't see it in
Yeah.
the theater. I watched it on streaming, but to me, it just had a very kind of dull, flat look to it, and I didn't love the look of it. I also really disliked the casting of Mark Hamill, who's doing this like weird voice that apparently, since I don't watch a lot of animated stuff, is a voice he's used in some animated stuff he's done. This like deep, grovelly voice that just seemed very cartoonish for a movie that's not cartoonish. It felt out of step. I thought, well, it's kind of strange. It's like I either was like, okay, well, you're going to take Colonel Lockjaw, Sean Penn's character, from this, movie. I mean, the rest of the movie is not done in a cartoonish way. So Mark Hamill
hmm
just did not seem like the right casting. It's almost like they were just like, oh, we need to put Mark Hamill in this because weirdly enough, Mark Hamill's also in the other Stephen King novella adaptation from 2025, Life of Chuck. Very strange. I had this moment where I thought, I saw Mark Hamill in two movies this year, and both were Stephen King adaptations. What the hell's going on? Very strange. Maybe only Stephen, maybe that's Mark Hamill's new career. He only stars in Stephen King adaptations. I don't know. But so it wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, this is a four-star movie. It's definitely watchable for the young actors and the performances. I did find myself as they were going along, like finding issues like, why would anyone sign up for this? Yeah, you get any watch, but you know you only have a very small percentage chance of making it. It also bugged me at the beginning when they would be like so shocked when one of them would die. And it's like, well, you literally knew this is the game you signed up for. And that way, I think the Hunger Games is, at least in that movie, they were all aware that what they're doing. So it's not like this horrible thing when someone dies in the way that they were like shocked and like trying to keep them alive. On the other hand, I guess you could say, even though you know you're playing the game, if you become attached to characters, it is harder to see them
And if you
go.
haven't seen somebody get shot in the head in front of you in person before, I think that would be shocking regardless of
It, yes,
expectation.
but because it's a live televised event, and I'm assuming maybe they've watched it on television before, I guess just the fact that they were like, "What are you doing? Why are you killing him?" You know, it was just like, well, you've seen the show, like it's a live televised event, like you know what's going to happen here. I mean, I
People
found
sign up for the
myself, yeah.
army and then are shocked when they go, overseas to war, and then people around them die too, though, right?
Well, yeah, but at least with that you think you have a chance. I mean, there's literally no they make it clear like everyone will be killed except for one person at the end. So it's like,
Hmm.
you know, you have a 1 in 50 chance, right? So anyway, I just thought it was one of those things that, you know, I think that's when you could tell I'm not totally into a movie when I start kind of picking it apart in my head and going, what about this? I don't know. What about that? So, but I did like that kind of cadre of main characters they have, and you know, I enjoyed it enough. I just didn't think it was like
Hmm.
an amazing movie,
Yeah.
but.
But since you brought up the Hunger Games, I think one thing that I really appreciated about this one, in contrast to that, was the way that, despite what you may think, even though there can only be one survivor and one winner, so you might think they'd be at each other's throats the whole time. Instead, they really bond quite a bit, and everyone is kind of like friends, and they all are trying to help each other, or at least most of them are trying to help each other. And
Mhm.
I thought that was like a kind of a fun inversion of expectations, and it does make the deaths feel that much more impactful. Like I was pretty moved at certain points. I was like, I didn't realize how much I had become attached to these characters because it
Yeah.
really, in many ways, it is kind of it's a little bit of a character study, through.
Well, yeah, it's also a movie about male friendship, which
Mhm.
ironically, one of my favorite reviews I saw in Letterboxd was like, this was the year of male friendship movies and how men will literally do anything but go to therapy, which I thought was funny because they're talking about the movie Friendship, of course, too.
Mhm.
And then these guys, it's like, well, I could, you know, go to therapy and try to settle or I could like go to this and walk to the death and make friends that way. Because at the end, they're like, I've made these lifelong friends and I love
There
you,
probably is
man.
no therapy in this world, to be fair. Everything is
True.
pretty awful in in
It's
this
true.
world
It's
that they're
true.
living
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we should move on. But yeah, I enjoyed it enough. I think you liked it a little bit more than me. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so the next one we're going to talk about is Bugonia. It's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Again, another movie with like, the story is not too complex or deep or anything. The sum of it is a man kidnaps the CEO of this major company because he believes that she is an alien. And he's intent on proving it no matter what it takes. And I do want to say too, and for anyone that wasn't aware, this is a remake of a Korean film called Save the Green Planet. And I'm just going to start by saying that I like that film much better than this one. Begonia seems to be getting rave reviews from everyone, and I quite honestly cannot fathom why. It's not that it's irredeemable, but there are so many things that I disliked about it, and I just far prefer the original. I think that for its subject matter, it was way too squeaky clean. Like I felt like there was a level of grit and, like griminess that was just missing from this, not just in like, physical like dirt. Like they didn't seem messed up enough, but like there is an edge that I felt like was missing that the original film has. The original film feels much more sharp, and like it felt much more intense in many ways. I mean, it's not that I'm super like pro, torture in movies or anything, but they really cut that down in Begonia. And I think that it actually worked very well for the original movie to show the torture to the extent that they did. It actually felt like thematically resonant because you see this guy that's like at the end of his rope and he's like getting, increasingly desperate to prove all this. And I don't know, there was a level of desperation that it added, not just for him, but for his captive that I think, made the whole story come together in a much more satisfying way, particularly the ending. Um, but anyway, I digress. I'm curious what you thought.
Well, we saw this together, so you kind of know what
Yeah.
I thought, but I think I liked it maybe slightly more than you, but not that much. And I'm not a huge fan of Save the Green Planet either, so maybe I just don't like this story, but I liked that one better than this one, particularly because of the grit that you mentioned. Even if you haven't seen Save the Green Planet, because it is somewhat difficult to find, the thing that's really disappointing to me is I was a huge Yorgos Lanthimos fan when he started his career. Dogtooth is absolutely an amazing masterpiece of a film, and a lot of people have not seen it. That's one of his films he did back in Greece. He was part of this what they called the Greek weird movement, and he got his reputation on making movies that are exactly as you described, that are really uncomfortable, that are cutting edge. And as he's become more and more Hollywood, he's have to like soften. So to me, Bugonia is like Yorgos softened quite a bit, and his last
Hmm.
few films have been like that. If you watch his early stuff, I mean, Dogtooth is such a masterpiece, in part because he didn't have a big budget. And so he had to go completely off the discomfort. But even his earlier Hollywood films have more of that edge to them. I'm thinking of The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, which I think are fantastic movies compared to his later ones. I just feel like as he's gone on, and it really started with The Favorite to me, he's just really he's gotten this Hollywood sheen to his stuff that I don't love. I do think this is a better movie than Kinds of Kindness, which I was just a total, just not, did not work on many levels. Mainly because the performances here are what saved the movie. Emma Stone is
Hmm.
quite good as the
She's
corporate
good.
exec. She's very good, but Jesse Plemons, absolutely. I mean, he continues to be this guy who's in these movies that we don't always love, but he steals the movie. I'm thinking about the Alex Garland film that we didn't love, that he was the best
Hmm.
thing in too.
And he's not
He
even in it that long,
I know. And this
Yeah.
movie, he's in, he's the main character, and a movie would completely not work if he's not as good as he is. He's just really, really good. He makes you
Hmm.
really sympathize with this guy and then kind of hate him once you realize. Because at first I thought, oh, he's the victim here. And then as it went on, I'm like, oh, yeah, he's not. The thing is about the theme of this movie, in a way, it reminded me of Eddington, is that these directors who are making these very nihilistic movies about what a terrible place we're at in the world, which I totally agree with. The irony is, I kind of agree with Ari Aster in Eddington, and I kind of agree with Yorgos's take in Begonia, but I don't know if what are you offering me ultimately as an artist if you have no other ideas besides the world has gone to hell and everything's terrible? Like I feel like I need a little bit more than that out of my art.
Hmm.
So
Agreed.
tell me the world's terrible, but then give me some other layer on that. Maybe it's not as terrible as we think, or maybe, there's an interesting
Or at
take in
least
there
make
somewhere.
the ride more interesting. Honestly, I was shocked at how boring this was at many
Yeah.
points. Like, it's very slack in its pacing, and I just found myself like, all right, let's move on.
Well, that's the other
Um,
thing. The film's too long. I think it's like quite a bit longer than Save the Green Planet. So it's just like
mhm,
it just drags. You're right. And I think it's shocking to people who haven't seen the original. But since we had both seen Save the Green Planet, I was like, well, I know where it's going, so this is not shocking. So it
mhm,
did drag quite a bit. You're right.
yeah.
With that one, so yeah, I can't recommend Begonia, but can recommend the first two films. Left-Handed Girl, I think, is the best so far. Now we'll get into our next one, Frankenstein. Speaking of films that drag, Guillermo del Toro's, this is another one of his passion projects. He's been trying to make it forever. I'm not going to go over the plot. You all know what Frankenstein's about. There's some new twists on this. It's told, he's on this boat, a fishing boat, and he's telling his story, the character Victor Frankenstein, to this captain of this boat in flashbacks. Great cast, totally misused. Oscar Isaac plays Victor Frankenstein. Jacob Elordi, probably one of the, I don't know, top 1 percentile of good-looking people on the planet, plays, not that I'm really into him, but I just think objectively speaking, people would say he's probably one of the better-looking people on the planet, is playing Frankenstein. So bizarre casting there. And Mia Goth as the woman. I mean, she's really the only female character who has amazing costumes, but is given nothing to do except for stare empty into the camera. I felt like this film was such a miss on so many levels. We hear that he used real practical effects and everything is real, but it looks fake as hell. I don't know if it's that the Netflix look or what it is. I didn't see it in the theater, unfortunately. Maybe it would have looked better there, but a lot of the sets looked very fake to me. My favorite sequence by far in the movie is the one most like a Guillermo del Toro older film where he's putting together Frankenstein and he's pulling all the body parts and limbs out, and it just looks cool and gnarly. That's my favorite scene. Frankenstein is so sympathetic and so pretty, weirdly. I mean, he's just Jacob Elordi, even with all that makeup on. I'm like, oh wow, look how pretty, look how pouty his lips are.
Mhm.
It's just like so distracting. I mean, you and I watched it, and I was like texting you and joking about how pretty Frankenstein is. I was like, wow, Boris Karloff never looked that cute in a little bikini underwear.
Mhm.
So
Frankenstein really did choose the perfect butt for this monster.
yes, exactly. He had a perfect butt in his little bikini underwear. Just so
Yeah.
many misses and such a great cast too. It's like these are all people. I mean, Oscar Isaac is a phenomenal actor, but he's given so little to do here,
Mhm.
which is weird because he's in every scene almost, right? But there's no depth to the character. I think. I really do think Guillermo del Toro needs to start working with someone else to write his scripts. The movie is preposterously long, and it just drags on and on and on.
I totally agree. I feel like all the characters and the themes were stripped of any nuance, and everything is one-dimensional. Everything is exactly as it appears. And quite often, they are just stating all of the themes out loud for you, the audience, like verbally just t saying things. Like the monster at one point goes, "No, like you're the monster, Frankenstein." It's like, okay, yeah, all right. We
Yes,
knew
thanks for
that.
stating the
Thank you for
obvious.
stating the obvious. Yeah, and then, on the note of the makeup and things too, I also didn't think that was very good, which is like that should be one of the main appeals of a Frankenstein movie is like how incredible the makeup and the effects are. But every time Jacob Elordi is walking around and we see him, it looks like he's wearing a morph suit. Like, it doesn't look at all like he's constructed of multiple different body parts from different people and yada yada yada. It looks like a morph suit where they've just like, they've printed on like little sections to make it look like they are stitched
Yeah.
together, but it's so awful looking. I was really quite shocked.
Yeah, and yeah, the music's not good. I did read online, which is very interesting in our few seconds we have left. Originally, Guillermo wanted to make this at Universal, which would have been awesome because the Universal Picture Books, and he was going to cast Doug Jones as Frankenstein.
Mm,
Even if everything else was the same, I think that would have been better casting because Doug Jones has been in all of Del Toro's films as the monster. He was the character in Pan's Labyrinth. He was the character in Shape of Water. He's a mime actor. He's amazing with his body. And I just kept thinking, oh, he was in Hellboy, a mimic. I mean, you name it. He's been the
mhm.
monster in Del Toro's movies. And I would have loved to see him in that. I don't think Elordi did anything bad. I just think it's just not the right
There's
character
not
for
much to do
Frankenstein.
at all. And also again, just like Begonia, its biggest crime is that it's boring. It's so
Right.
boring. It's way too long. There's so many stretches where I'm like, nothing's happening here. And
Right.
it's like
Frankenstein should be fun. It's a monster
yeah,
movie. Have some fun,
yeah,
Del Troy. So serious. It's like, oh,
yeah.
you would think this was Macbeth or something, the way the seriousness of it. It's like, it's a monster movie. Have
Hmm.
some fun with monsters. Remember what it was like to be a kid and playing with your little toys, Del Toro. Just like put some liven this stuff up and cut it in about half the
Hmm.
length. So
Yep.
that's our take, folks. And catching up on 2025 films, Left-Handed Girl is the big winner, I think. So check it
Absolutely.
out.
Two thumbs up
And
for Left-Handed Girl.
yes, but we don't have that copyrighted. So yes, 4 stars or three and a half. So thank you as always. Have a good day, great day actually, and great movies. Bye bye.
Yeah, no, I think I was so shocked at how boring Frankenstein was. It's like it's weird the sections of the book that he takes and like extends them into infinity, and then like so much of it too, he just like compresses into nothing. Like I feel like, we just totally gloss over the whole part where the monster is like wanting a mate and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's mentioned, it feels like a little 10-minute jaunt though, and there's no depth to it. There's no feeling in it. I don't know. It was strange to me. I think Del Toro is too in love with the subject matter to like assess it, more objectively and like deliver a good experience. He loves monsters too much to the point where he can never depict the monster actually being a monster, which is
Mm.
part of it. Like the monster is not entirely sympathetic. Like, yes, he has this, a terrible plight and it's his lot in life is awful and hard, but like I mean, to depict him as like just, this poor wretched creature with a heart of gold, and like, I mean, come on, can we have a little bit more nuance to our
Oh yeah, and I don't think
characters?
it would have been necessarily a better movie, but it might have been if Doug Jones had been cast, and he was also going to use this visual effects artist. I forgot his name, but he died before he got a chance to make the
Mhm.
movie, and he was going to use him. And he had all these he had drawings that from that artist that he used to inspire and asked his new artists to make. But I kind of wondered, like, if he'd gotten to make the movie he wanted to make at United Art at Universal, that was with Doug Jones, with this other visual effects artist who's this legend in Hollywood, whether or not it would have at least looked better.
Yeah, it would
Because
at
I
least
do,
look better. I
yeah,
mean, like you
even if the
said, it would need
story would have
help
been
with
the
the
same.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like you said, he's too attached. I did like Del Toro's Pinocchio better than this one. Maybe because Pinocchio is an easier character to make sympathetic. I don't know, but like I felt like this one was, um,
At least
yeah, I
with
mean,
Pinocchio too, it was like a radical enough departure from the source material that you're like, all right, if nothing else, this is like an interesting take. This is an interesting way to go about this story. With Frankenstein, he really is not doing anything new whatsoever. Everything we've seen before, everything is, like clearly him trying to approximate the book or whatever. I mean, he literally has the movie structured with like chapters and things with that, which I thought was just like ridiculous. I did not care for the structure of this film whatsoever. The fact that it's just like Frankenstein relaying this story, and then the monster comes in and he gets his say too. I'm like, do we really care? Like, I would
yeah.
have rather just seen this play out, like in, just straight rather than
Well,
having
in the
this
big, like you
flashback.
said, the
So,
stuff he chose to focus on and extend from the book, like I thought the beginning with the dad was just like, is this ever gonna end? Like, okay, we get it.
hmm.
He's got daddy issues. Can we could have cut that in half easily. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, the bride stuff was like 5 seconds. So it was like, okay, what? So poor Mia Goth gets, her part cut to almost nothing. And so,
hmm.
yeah, just
Two good sequences in this whole movie, and it's Frankenstein constructing the monster, and then when the monster punches that guy's jaw off. That was pretty cool. I
with
like that.
the
Yeah,
wolves
but
scene,
that was
yeah.
like a half second, literally. That was like it was like maybe 2 or 3 seconds
Out of
total
a
of
2 hour,
out of a
45 minute
2 hour.
movie or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that was one cool bit of like kinetic action, and like it really grabbed me, and then it was back to the slog fest.
Yeah. And the voiceover narration is like, and when he started with that, I thought, oh no, because like, here I tell my
Hmm.
story and I'm going to use this voice the entire movie. And I was like, oh. So
Yeah.
I'm glad had time to go like pause it and take a break to go to the bathroom and, slap myself to wake up while I was watching it. So,
Tell me how Frankenstein is slower than a Tsai Ling film. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Like, I would rather watch that guy stare at a wall for 15 minutes in Stray Dogs or whatever
yeah.
than watch Frankenstein again. I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah, no, because there's nothing interesting happening. There's no emotional depth to the characters because of the writing.
Hmm.
That's the difference. It's not even as much because of the visuals, I think. It's really like there's no emotional depth to the
Hmm.
characters. He really
Yeah.
needs help with his writing.
I mean,
Um,
it's like kind of inversion of the long walk where like there's not much going on visually, right? So I mean, that's well, actually, that's the same as Frankenstein, but at least The Long Walk has more compelling characters. You can latch on to those dynamics and
Mhm.
like feel for them and relate to them in ways. This one, it's just like so eye-rolling. I feel like he was making this movie for, children, not even teenagers, just like literal children. Like we have to strip all nuance and complexity, and we're just going to tell it like, we're reading from a children's book, like a picture book or something. I don't
Right.
even
Yeah,
know.
especially the part where he's like, "You're the monster, Victor Frankenstein." I said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
we got that part of the movie. We got it. He's not
Hmm.
the monster. He's also prettier, so we get it." So
Yeah.
anyway, well.